Bob, one of the things that you've been writing about recently is this idea as people are working their way through the financial crisis, trying to understand the implications, the causes, the effects of it, this desire to find a permanent solution to all the ills that beset the banking system, the economy in general. Talk to me a bit about that. What's driving this need? Is it realistic?
There's a reason for it, obviously, because this was a serious economic breakdown, and at the heart of this breakdown is a perceived inadequacy of the regulators, Congress, political system, which allowed these things to happen. And therefore, there becomes a sort of mounting distrust of regulators, of the fact that the center of the system is a system of oversight with people. And so instead there sort of becomes this reaction to, let's do something structural that takes people out of it. And that's interesting, particularly in a democracy like ours, because it says something about the democracy.
Are you saying it undermines the idea of the democracy?
Well, sure. It's particularly an issue that sort of comes up because of an election. But you can feel a sort of mounting displeasure, distrust, fear of certain candidates elected and what they might do and say and how they might react in the constant interaction between Washington and Wall Street. And there's a sort of sense of, well, we need to take those decisions, those things out of their hands. We don't trust the regulators. Let's move it off the table entirely by putting, hard caps on bank size, or breaking down the banks, or nationalizing the banks, or, on the other side, let's get rid of the Fed. Let's go to a gold standard, or let's go to some other mechanism.
But it's a bit of a fallacy, right? You can't take people out of the economy.
You would take regulators out of it. You would take overseers, policymakers. And it's just a general sense that left and right, that the regulators are not following their set of ideas. The one thing we know, or not everybody knows, but I think is historically valid, is that rigid structural solutions to problems rarely last. They often create their own problems. The free market will break down. The gold standard will prove too rigid and too tight monetarily in a world that changes so fast. And there are major problems with the break up the bank scenario, which are, tend to be bypassed by those folks, and by the nationalization argument. There's major limitations, there's major downsides to it. And you can't solve all these problems just by a simple structural solution.